central banks in other countries start inflating their currencies more and reducing their value. This is what he wants eventually to happen. There is no doubt about it. Now, whether or not he wants a temporary period of the yuan to go up in its value and then come down, he wants the yuan to go down. If he wants to try to appeal to U.S. manufacturers for a while to see some of their products being sold abroad, that's possible. But there's only one thing that he wants here, and you'll hear this. This is very clear to me and to you. Check out this piece. Listen to it. It's from Chinese cable TV news.
This is Geithner's first visit to China since taking office. The new secretary values the China-U.S. economic ties as much as his predecessors. In the face of global economic difficulty, Geithner says cooperation is vital for laying a good foundation for future growth.
A successful transition to a more balanced, stable global economy is going to require very substantial changes to economic policy and to financial regulation around the world. But some of the most important of those changes are going to have to come in China and in the United States. How successful we are in Washington and in Beijing will be critically important to the economic fortunes of the rest of the world. And the effectiveness of U.S. policies will depend in part on China's and the effectiveness of yours on ours. And critical to our long-term...
The Secretary says the necessary changes will come in different ways. Americans will have to increase their savings rate, and the fiscal deficit must be brought down. And for China, he thinks the priority is to expand domestic consumption. International cooperation is another focus of the Secretary. He says it's just as important as addressing domestic challenges. He says the U.S. will help to put in place a stronger global financial system and will fully support China to play a bigger role.
As part of this process of reform, the United States will fully support having China play a role in the principal cooperative arrangements that help shape the international financial system, a role commensurate with China's importance in the global economy. I believe that a greater role for China is necessary for China, it's necessary for the effectiveness of these international institutions, and it's necessary for the world economy.
You hear that? The priority is to increase domestic consumption. Now, when you've got a central bank, that means one thing: inflate. Defraud the citizens of your nation so that your currency becomes worth less like ours, and in exchange, we in the U.S., if you listen to it, will work to give you more power in an international regulatory schema. Here, listen to this bit.
The Secretary says the necessary changes will come in different ways. Americans will have to increase their savings rate, and the fiscal deficit must be brought down. And for China, he thinks the priority is to expand domestic consumption. International cooperation is another focus of the Secretary. He says it's just as important as addressing domestic challenges. He says the U.S. will help to put in place a stronger global financial system and will fully support China to play a bigger role.
As part of this process of reform, the United States will fully support having China play a role in the principal cooperative arrangements that help shape the international financial system, a role commensurate with China's importance in the global economy.
This guy, Timmy, is no better than a pimp. He's a financial drug pusher. He's trying to get everybody to take speed, and he knows that there's a crash coming, everybody. I feel strongly that this is coming sooner than we might have thought. This mirage of economic growth is going to pop up, then die rapidly. And if China eventually inflates, God help the entire world. Now, to reiterate, I've got two more cuts. This one coming from, of all sources, Al Jazeera. Take a listen, as even the Arab-owned news network gets a lot right.
Among the U.S. Treasury Secretary's various talents, fluency in Mandarin. But TIMMY Geithner will have to prove he also speaks the financial language of top Chinese officials, including President Hu Jintao during his quick trip to Beijing. Geithner's task to assure the Chinese their huge investment in the U.S. is sound in the face of Washington's soaring stimulus-driven debt.
Recovery in the world depends on recovery in the United States. Recovery in the United States depends on recovering the financial system.
Though China is now the single biggest buyer of U.S. government securities, its confidence in the U.S. dollar has begun to waver.
The U.S. dollar is a currency in descent. China realizes this, and they're trying to figure out how to extricate themselves from U.S. and global dollar hegemony, which is not serving them well at the moment. And they find themselves holding a huge $2 trillion bag of worms called U.S. dollars.
U.S. officials were unnerved when Geithner's counterpart, China's central bank head Zhou Xiaochun, recently proposed the creation of a new international reserve currency. The aim to gradually reduce the global economy's reliance on the U.S. dollar.
I think the dollar remains the world's dominant reserve currency. I think that's likely to continue for a long period of time. And as a country, we will do what's necessary to make sure we're sustaining confidence in our financial markets and on the productive capacity of this economy and our long-term fundamentals.
Once the U.S. economy has made a comeback, say Treasury officials, the Obama administration will boost the dollar by reining in Washington's debt. But Geithner may also renew U.S. appeals for the Chinese to revalue their currency, the yuan. Some American businesses contend it is still set too low against the dollar, making their products uncompetitive. Tom Ackerman, Al Jazeera, Washington.
Now, you heard mention a little bit about the trade fear, and it's interesting because they mention reining in Washington's debt. Can you say taxation rather than cuts in spending? And just to give you some confidence and a laugh, listen to this great statement by TIMMY while in China, and listen for the circular nature of it. It's absolutely stunning. Check this out.
The world's going through an exceptionally challenging period now, and I think that the world has a huge stake in our two countries working closely together to lay a foundation for recovery and also to try to put in place the kind of reforms that allow for a stronger, more balanced, sustainable recovery in the future with a international financial system that's more able to provide a foundation for stability in the future.
Yes, we have a huge stake in stopping this mental patient from hitting himself in the head so that we can make sure this mental patient stops hitting himself in the head so that we can work together to come up with a way to stop him hitting himself in the head. Wow. Now, one final note. Recall our conversation with Scott Horton of antiwar.com and Antiwar Radio about the United States creating many enemies out there in the world when they're dropping bombs on people and killing their brothers and sisters. Well, here's a story from the AP. Pauline Jelinek writes this. AP source, U.S. made bombing errors in Afghanistan. Dateline Washington. The U.S. military's failure to follow tightened rules for aerial strikes likely caused civilian deaths in a May 4th American bombing in western Afghanistan, a defense official said Wednesday. This was the chief finding of an internal Pentagon review of the incident, said the official, who related this to the Associated Press on grounds of anonymity because of the preliminary nature of the investigation. Let's go to the newsreel footage. Errors were made in the early May attack, the official acknowledged. Oh, don't you love that passive voice rather than the active voice? Errors were made. Oh, God. They should put out a government dictionary. Actually, people are all starting to talk like that anyway, totally nonsensically now. If you get a chance, there's a really good piece by Tom Monteleone, who's a fellow libertarian and runs Borderlands Press. If you get a chance, pick up last month's Cemetery Dance magazine. It talks about the corruption of the language in it. Cemetery Dance magazine. Anyway, errors were made in the early May attack, the official acknowledged, discussing an incident that has strained relations between Washington and Kabul and caused resentment among the Afghan people. The official said the American military commanders are on a number of occasions have rewritten the rules covering U.S. bombing missions in ways calculated to avoid civilian casualties, most likely late last year. The official said these were more restrictive rules, and they were not followed in some cases. Well, there you go. So, as long as the United States thinks it's got to be involved in killing people in order to stop people resenting the United States, I think there's a problem. Don't you? Yeah. Okay, listen, I've got to sign off. I'm Gardner Goldsmith, G Grande. This is Liberty Conspiracy Audio, and we are brought to you by some really good people. First, the Freedom Book Club. FreedomBookClub.com, making freedom a bestseller. You go there, you can check out the offerings and give some suggestions yourself each month and vote for the book that you would like to see have a little mini book bomb dropped for it so that people will concentrate their buying power on it and you'll see it rise up the ranks on Amazon. And the name of the author will be better recognized in the literary world. Hey, who knows? Maybe someday one of them would be picked for the Oprah book. Nah. I'm like Theodoric of York. Anyway, then we also have been brought to you by freekeen.com. Freekeen.com is a website that offers audio, video, and blogos showing you what is happening in Keene, New Hampshire as they make the transition to a freer society. It is freekeen.com. And our big thanks to Jason Osborne and SACL CAI. Remember, SACL CAI provides the best in financial recovery services for large businesses. SACL CAI, they've been doing it since the 1950s, based out of Defiance, Ohio. They can come to you and take care of things for your business while your business constantly